The retrospective, or retro, is a crucial step in the Agile feedback loop, and it invites us to reflect on the past to improve the future. But too often in business, we skip this step due to our busy schedules or that feedback can sometimes feel uncomfortable. So let's take the time today to explore the power of retrospectives and how this great ritual can help you develop as an individual, as well as in your team and whole organizations. Welcome to Talking HR Trends with Natal and Tom. I'm Natal Dank.
And I'm Tom Haak.
And we explore the latest hot topics and business challenges impacting the people side of organizations. Stick around to the end for our practical top tip. And if you find this discussion valuable, please subscribe. Okay, so we're going to explore retrospectives today. And this ties into the theme of continuous improvement, which is kind of the mantra of modern business. Retrospectives are really interesting. It's a crucial part of agile ways of working. And it's separate to reviewing the product. So most of our listeners will know that in Agile, you always take time to review the product with your customer and look at the what you're working on. But retrospectives actually is taking time out as a team to look at how you're working. So how you've collaborated and the tools you've used to get the job done. Why is it important to take time out as a team to look at how you've worked? And why should this be a separate step to looking at the product itself?
Many teams are dysfunctional. So it's very difficult to have great running teams. And we know that giving feedback to each other and learning from each other and becoming a really powerful team is not easy. And that's why the retrospective also as a discipline, and I think that's important, not to have it as a one-time event once per year, but as a discipline, saying, okay, what can we learn as a team? How can we become a better team? How can we improve the way we work as a team on different subjects? So the product, of course, is an outcome of the teamwork, but that's separate because you will be working on other projects, on other things, in other teams. So what can you learn? And that discipline, to have that frequently, to have it in your system and not, oh God, but because initially people are looking, they don't like it necessarily because you will get feedback and it's not about you, but it's about the team. So I think it's a powerful practice, but it's not used enough, I would say.
No, definitely not. No, exactly. And so the retro should be done on a regular basis, as you pointed out, and ideally every few weeks, at least every month. And it's about a safe space where people share stories and experiences, as you've just suggested, on the last cycle of work, so the last sprint. So again, it's a discipline. Do it over and over again. And the idea is the more we do this, the more comfortable we are at talking about failure and feedback just as much as achievements. But so are we fearful about talking about failure and feedback in business? Is this why we don't like to do the retrospective?
I think so, because you talk about a safe environment,
Yes.
but often environments are not safe. So the experience are often not too positive. So safe environment, I think that's important. That's not something you can say, okay, from now on we have a safe environment. That you have to create that. In another episode, we will talk about self-managed teams. But sometimes it's easier maybe in a self-managed team than in a team where the boss is sitting there. So, okay, let's have you can say everything about me. But that's often not a safe environment.
Definitely. And I think that's why you have seen it come about as an essential tool of sort of agile self-managed teams. Because it's connected to that idea that we're all in it together and we can develop together. What I would say is if you do have a leader role, then they definitely shouldn't be the facilitator. You should definitely get someone that's objective. And what I have found works really well is have people from other teams be the sort of agile coach or scrum master for your team, and they come in and they help you facilitate the discussion. Also using tools like you can do a sort of a little questionnaire or a health check before you have the discussion. So you've got a bit of data to work on, and definitely use lots of different formats. So there's some great references out there that's on the PXO Culture website and the different formats actually help guide the discussion, and they help people feel safe, which I think is really important.
And I think we should note also the cultural differences, because there are big cultural differences. And in some cultures, or in some countries, it will work a little bit more difficult. So you have to take that into account as well, also, especially in multinational teams.
Things like silent brainstorming and, taking time to allow people to think about things before they talk about it. Use it, if you're in a face-to-face environment or online, use things like a whiteboard and post-it notes or sticky notes to ensure that people are writing down their notes, they're putting it up to be visual, and then you can explore what's up on the board rather than just, hearing from the loudest person in the room, So all those techniques are really important. But I've also seen HR professionals use the retrospective format to go and work with business teams. So how is a business team going about strategy or their ways of working, or also to explore a topic like talent or diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it's actually a really nice format for that. And I think the format's really important because what I have found is all you need to ask is a few upfront questions and you've already got loads and loads of data to start using. So actually know that you're going to have a lot to talk about and sort of time box around that. So I thought for our practical tip, Tom, we could demonstrate doing a retrospective and we could use one of my favorite formats, which is called the feedback matrix. So it's got 4 questions, nice and simple. And let's reflect on our last cycle. So what it's been like to work together up until now through the episodes that we've done together. So the first question, Tom, is what do you think has worked well?
One of the elements that worked well is the interaction. So the combination Natal and Tom. I think that's a good mix of styles and a good mix, and we fit well together in that respect. So I think that worked well.
We do, and I often call as I'm the Aussie optimist, and you're the kind of honest, direct Dutchie that says it how it is. But that's kind of the dynamic goes well, doesn't it? Okay, so then the next question is what hasn't worked so well? So what are some areas to improve or change in the future?
Let's say the length is we always talk too long, and then poor Tim, who is editing this thing, he has to cramp it in. It would be a lot easier if we would stuck to 9.5 minutes, and that was it.
I know. And I've noticed that we're better when we're prepared. But then sometimes when we're prepared, we talk even more. So that there's always this sort of dynamic of how we can manage our conversations in a better way. So the third question is, what has been your biggest insight so far in working together?
Well, I think one of the insights is clearly that it's amazing how much you can get across in around those 10 minutes.
Definitely.
Initially, I thought, well, 10 minutes, what can you do? But you can do quite some things in 10 minutes.
And my insight is that I learn something every time. So sometimes I come into these topics thinking I know all about it, and then I always learn something and a different perspective, which again is that nice dynamic that we have with each other. And then the final question is, what have you appreciated? So what do you appreciate about working together?
We already mentioned some things, but I would say, one, we can have a good laugh. And I add to we can learn from each other, and I think that's important. I can learn from you, you can learn from me, and that's worthwhile for me.
I find this quite fun, so thank you for making it fun, and definitely thank you for having a laugh each time.
And then what would you do if this was a retrospective? What would we now do with those points?
So now we would always want to highlight one improvement for the next cycle.
Okay.
So, and I do definitely suggest that you should only really aim to take one into the next cycle, because the more improvements to take, the more you've got to prioritize when you're going to get the improvements done and how to get them done. So again, just focus on one key thing every time. And if you do this on a regular basis every few weeks, you'll actually be able to drive that continuous improvement loop, which is what we want. Thank you for your time today, Tom. Another great discussion and a great retrospective. This is Talking HR Trends with Natal and Tom. If you found this discussion valuable, please subscribe. Have a great day.